Sure you can hear me. Checking, checking. Check 1, 2. Check 3, 4.
Ready? Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. I see some familiar faces, so thank you for being here again 2 nights in a row. We are doing a lot of these, and so we really appreciate your participation and support. My name is Rachel Crocker, and I am the director of the Albany County Public Library. And for those of you who have been here multiple times, watching multiple videos, you, like me, are going to have our mission statement memorized by the time we get through all of these. So the mission of the Albany County Public Library is to build meaningful connections to inspire growth, cultivate curiosity, and enhance community. And we do that in a lot of ways, but this is, I think, a perfect way that we get to check all 4 of those boxes. So thank you for joining us tonight. A huge thank you to the League of Women Voters for coordinating all of these. If you haven't noticed, it's a big election year. There's a lot of people running and a lot of elections happening, and we have a lot of forums happening. But it's important, right, that we are all informed about all of those different positions, and it takes a lot to coordinate all of these, and that is all the League of Women Voters. So thank you all for the work that you do to make all of these happen. Thank you again to everybody here in the room and to those who are watching online live or will watch this video later. Thank you for participating in our community in this way. It's really important. And finally, thank you, candidates. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's great to see so many faces up here, but even more so, thank you for the time and energy that you are putting into serving our community this way. It really matters, and we appreciate that very much. So that is it for me, and I'm going to turn it over to Lynn to talk a little bit more about how the forum's going to run tonight.
Well, and as Rachel and I do even more often a week than before, we exchange thank you. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Riley Shogren. Thank you, Dylan May, for all your help. These 2 gentlemen are the ones who are make sure it's a wonderful video and that it's posted in a timely way. And I should say, if you haven't looked yet, all the last 3 videos are all up and running, both on the League Facebook page and on the library website. And they'll be in more places eventually, I'm sure. So thank you for that. And I want to thank maybe even the community, because the funding to the library has facilitated hiring tech people, really good tech people, are having better equipment. And we've had our forums in this space for a number of years, but the quality has just escalated. It's a pleasure to watch, and so I urge you to watch. We have timekeepers tonight. We start with Jamie Ingolf, and she's going to hold up cards. And if you would please pay attention to her, not just when she's moving the sign around wildly. It starts at 90 seconds and moves down to 10 and then 0. And if you would, there'll be a couple of questions that are just short answer. There won't be cards on those, and there might be a 1-minute question. So pay attention. We count down. And to replace Jamie when she's tired is Al Tremblay. And I also wanted to do something else. I want to introduce all the other people who are here tonight, who are candidates for different races or who are already elected candidates. They might be incumbents this time. And if you could come up here so that the audience can see you, not just hear your voices. Introduce yourselves and the races for which you're running.
Good evening. My name is Carly Provenza. I am the representative for House District 45, and I'm running for my 2nd term.
My name is Elliot Arthur, and I'm running for the school board, Area A, 2-year position.
Thank you. And I'm Leo Swope, and I'm also running for the school board, Area B, 4 years.
Thank you. And what you're going to see tonight when I have the 7 candidates here up in front with me, they'll introduce themselves and describe what race they're in. There are 4 different races. There's a large race. 2 people are running. You elect 1. There is an Area A race for 4 years, full term. So there are 5 people running for that, and you elect 3 or select 3. There's Area A, and you finish out someone else's term. So it's a 2-year appointment or race. And there are 3 people in that race. No, I have to count. Is it 4 people in that race? You select 2, 3? Just a second. 2-year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 running, and you pick 2. And then finally, there's Area B. 3 people are running, and you pick 1. Okay, so we've got 2 Area A's, and I think here at the table, everybody except this last person, Janice Marshall, is in Area A 2 or 4 years. Okay, and they'll clarify when they get there, or when they get to speak. I've been asked to remind you that I'm not your audience. Your audience is in front of you and on camera. So please, don't spend your time, answering my questions, because in fact, they're not my questions. I've gathered them up. So please pay attention to our audience, make them feel like they're part of your conversation. Let's see, what else? Oh, yes, the League of Women Voters puts out a voter guide, as you may be aware, and it's coming out on the 15th, Saturday the 15th. But before that, if you go to Vote 411, and I've put before the candidates something else, Steele Janice's, we have these brand new coasters, and you can take them home with you, and you can pick up some extras. We also have table tents, but on all of them, there's a QR code that just takes you right to where you want to be to either learn about the races, the candidates, or the people. We've been putting them on tables and counters around town, and we'll continue. So if you'd like more to put someplace else, just let us know. 411, it was started in 2014 by the National League, and the idea is that no matter where you live and no matter where you vote, eventually you can just go on there and download or look at your ballot and read what your candidates have to say for themselves. We were at the Canterbury House on Tuesday, and when a couple of students said, yes, but we're not from Laramie, we're going to vote in Star Valley or something, they were so excited to hear that 411, Vote 411 might have information for them as well. Okay, well, anyway, it's a wonderful idea, and locally we have both 411, we have forums, and we have the Boomerang insert that's coming soon. And as soon as the Boomerang insert is out, you'll see versions posted, both on our website, on our Facebook, but they won't have the ads and they won't have the pictures, just a bare bones kind of voter guide. Let's see, I think that's all I wanted to say. Anybody have a question before we start? Yes. Yes? You vote for all of them. For the city council, they're in wards and we only vote for our ward. But for this one, and it should be on your ballot. So if you were to go and you may have gotten your ballot already if you're voting early. I have, but if you looked at 411, type in your address and it'll show you who your candidates are and you would see them all. So you want to, maybe I should say something more about questions. As you can see, our league member here, Matthew Link, is gathering up some from this audience. I also have copies of the last 2 nights from the forum, if we want to go backwards, and I've got 12 from previous years. So we've got lots of questions, and the priority will be tonight's. I won't use any questions that seem to be directed toward a certain person or persons. Sorry. And if a bunch of questions all are about the same theme, I may blend them together. Okay? I think that's it. Let's get started with our candidates. That's what you came for? All right. Well, when we do this, we're going to start at one end and sort of progressively, the first person work our way down and then swing back. So we'll start with Carrie. Carrie, would you please give your name, your race, and the race you're running in. And the first night, the the candidates went a little further. They talked about employment and children. So very briefly, introduce yourself.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Carrie Murphy. I am running for an Area A 4-year seat. I have 2 kids in 2 different Albany County schools. My 2nd grader is at Slade. My 5th grader is at Indian Paintbrush. I also have a 16-year career in education research and supporting states and districts with their education systems. As part of that, I have observed classrooms, held focus groups with teachers and school leaders, documented school lunch practices, visited after-school programs, and researched best practices in teacher recruitment, teacher retention, teacher support. And I have also testified to and advised the Wyoming State Legislature's Education Committee. So I'm deeply entrenched in the world of education and education research and best practices, and I look forward to bringing both a parent's perspective and evidence-based lens to the school board. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Short answers. All right, Mary Alice.
Hi there. I'm Mary Alice Bruce. I am a wife, a mother of 4 kids in a blended family, 2 of whom graduated from Laramie High School. I was a math and chemistry teacher, also a school counselor. I'm a licensed professional counselor, university professor here at Wyoming, and now a professor emeritus here at the University of Wyoming. I lived in Albany County for more than 30 years, and I am running for Area A 2 years.
Thank you, Mary.
To complete the term, because I'm on the board right now as a trustee. Thank you. Here, Mike.
My name's Mike Schult. I'm from Laramie, lived here 63 years. So I went to public school here. My wife and I have been married for 36 years. We have 6 kids. When our oldest son was in 6th grade, and second oldest was in 3rd, my wife and I homeschooled. We homeschooled all 6 of our kids through the high school, and they're all adults now, leading productive lives. The reason I run for school board is if there's anything I have to offer, I'd like to be able to help the school district in any way I can. Got a lot of friends that we know that work for the school district, teachers or administration or whatever.
Short answers. How about there?
What's that?
Short answer.
Short answer. So I'm done.
Okay. Nate.
I'm Nate Martin. I'm the been on the board since 2018, running for re-election. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called Better Wyoming. I live with my wife in Westside Laramie and look forward to sending our future children to the school district.
Name's Thomas Mullen. I'm running for the at-large position, 4-year term. Army veteran, husband, father, 3 children, 5 grandchildren. 3 of them are currently in the school here in Laramie. I've got 2 in Cheyenne. And I decided to run because I'm fed up with the way the education system has seemed to have been falling apart and falling down. They've lost focus on our children and educating our children. And for the past few years, it seems like the school board hasn't been listening. And I'm here to at least give parents of Albany County an ear at least where they can know that they're going to be heard and the issues are going to be addressed. Thank you.
Okay. Sandy. Slide forward. Oh, there you go.
I'm Sandy Reese. I am running for the Area A 4-year term. I have deep roots in our community, having been here since 1965.
Closer.
All my education's been here at Laramie Schools, including a Bachelor's of Science degree in Agricultural Communications and Master's Studies in Adult Education. Furthermore, I'm a mother and a parent of 3 ACSD1 students. I've lived in multiple places and taught in 3 states, both as an adult educator and as a professional substitute. One of the most important lessons that I ever learned as a teacher was to check my priorities and agendas at the door, because when I walked into the classroom, I was a subject matter expert whose only role was to educate our students. The purpose of the American public education system is to educate our students in academics, and vocational skills so that they can succeed in life. We need to be raising lifelong learners and teaching critical thinkers so that they can be self-sufficient, responsible adults.
Thank you, Sandy. And Janice.
Good evening, I'm Janice Marshall. First off, thank you to the League for hosting this, and thank you to my fellow candidates. This is democracy in work in action when we get to elect our officials. I am seeking re-election in Area B on the school board. I have lived in Laramie for about 45 years. After graduating from the University of Wyoming, my husband and I started a business. We made Laramie our home. We've raised our 4 children here who are all graduates of Laramie High School, and I would love to have the opportunity to continue to be a part of this excellent district.
Thank you very much. Well, as you can see, I've gotten a number of questions from the audience. Let's start with something simple. Are teachers and staff paid, or adequately paid? We'll start with Mary Alice. Could say yes or no, but you've got a minute and a half.
Thank you. I don't think our teachers and staff are adequately paid. They are devoted to our children and what's more important in our lives than our children and our future. And I'm always wondering, how can we best support our students and our staff? And I think that right now, the board is doing the best it can with the budget that is available. And at the same time, it's kind of like that advertisement on TV. What's the teacher worth? The teacher is priceless in the classroom because that teacher takes care and supports our children. And what's most important that the teacher focuses on? Academic success and general well-being. And so we've got a learning lag after COVID, and our teachers in our district are working extra hard to support our kids to catch up socially, along with their mental health and their academic success. So I would just say, how much are our teachers worth and our staff worth? They're priceless.
Mike, your turn.
Honestly, I haven't looked into what anybody makes. I've just talked to a few teachers, some administrators. The teachers I've talked to said they think that the salaries are very competitive, fair, but I'm sure they could always use more. Administrators tend to think they don't make enough, but you know, that it is what it is. But I think in order to keep quality teachers, we're going to have to make sure that we have the funds to pay them well, to make it a beneficial project or beneficially meaningful to them, to keep them, and then to bring new teachers in. Obviously, we got to be competitive to bring them in, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing we're going to run into is getting new teachers in. So, anyway, that's my take on it.
Nate.
Also, I think no. I do know how much the teachers make, and it's not enough. And that's somewhat, the decision is up to the board. It's mostly up to the Wyoming State Legislature, which has been actively working to defund public schools for a decade or so now. As you all know, the cost of everything is going up, and the teachers' salaries are not going up. In the model that the legislature has handed us. We live in a free market. As my colleague here said, you know, we have to remain competitive or else teachers are gonna leave. You know, we already have people going over the hill to teach in Cheyenne. You know, we have people who are gonna leave and go to Colorado, and we have people who are gonna leave and go to other professions. If we want to attract and maintain quality professionals, we have to pay a competitive salary, and currently, that's not happening as a result of the legislature.
Thank you.
Thomas Mullen.
Yeah.
I feel the teachers, I'm not exactly sure their pay scales. I haven't seen them yet. But one, you need to get paid based on performance. Albany County School District has sadly dropped off on graduation rates. Teachers need to get paid for what they're worth and what they produce. Local business owner, if you give a good service, you get compensated for it. I feel the same as teachers, administrators, and everything else. When you let the school system fall apart, it hurts our education for the students, hurts our community, because then they can't get out and be productive citizens in our community. So we'd have to look at it all, see what their performance rating is, and then base their pay on that. If you want good teachers, they know they'd rather teach at a good school versus going to a school where they're just going to flow along the system. Thanks.
Thank you, Thomas. Sandy?
Wyoming has the 8th highest per pupil expenditure in the country. I don't think that it's so much a matter of how much the teachers are being paid, but what we're getting for our money's worth when we look at that. Recruitment and retention are difficult, but they're difficult across the country at this time. And so we always need to consider the possibility of the teachers leaving, but at the same time, Wyoming has been a state with a lot of money, more than many, but times are tight, budgets are tight, and so we have to realistically look at whether or not we can afford that. And as a school board member, you would simply have to say, can we afford this? Those are some of the tough questions that you have to ask. So rather than throwing more money at it, we need to be seriously looking at where's the money going? What are we doing with the money that we have at this time? Do we have a little too much here in administration or this project or that program? And just see if the funding can be shifted around and reallocated.
Janice.
I think it's important that we're continually evaluating our teachers and staff salaries so that we can stay competitive. I haven't looked recently, but at one time, Albany County was in the upper 30s of our 48 districts in terms of what our salaries are. And there are complications with how do you factor in benefits, insurance rates, but what does that really cover? So it's complex to really compare salary to salary because that's one part of a compensation for a teacher, but there are the benefits that go along with that. I think as Trustee Martin stated, we're dependent on the legislature for our funding. It's essential that we continue to get that external cost adjustment. We're all paying more for groceries and gas and everything that we buy, and so are our teachers. And it's important that we are able to help them keep up with the cost of inflation as best we can.
All right, thank you. Each night that the school board candidates have been here.
I haven't answered yet.
Sorry.
No
Go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, so Wyoming teacher salaries used to be extremely competitive in our region, and it really allowed us to attract the best and the brightest. But we haven't kept up, right? So now, whereas we used to have the highest pay in our region, we could attract the best and the brightest from Nebraska, from Colorado, from Idaho. Now the opposite is happening. We are losing some of our best teachers. I think Nate mentioned like from the profession completely, but also to our neighboring states. And the reality is that teachers are the number one most important school-based factor that affect student success. This has been well researched and well documented. So that means teachers are more important than like the specific curriculum, the specific textbook, whether the building is brand new or in desperate need of repairs. The teacher in front of your kid's classroom is the most important factor influencing their success, and our budget needs to reflect that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad you called my attention to you. Well, as I started to say, for the last two nights and again tonight, some of the questions have cited statistics from the district. So I thought I would just clarify 3 years of statistics from their report card. This is state report card. For right now, for 21 to 22, English language skills, 59% proficiency. Now what that means is, I'm not going to explain. Mathematics, 51% proficient. I'm a math teacher. As Mary Alice knows, it pains us to say this number. But graduation rates, 79.5%. If you go back a little bit, 2018 to 19, they didn't report, by the way, between 2019 and 2020. 2018 to 19, English language skills, 63, math, 62, graduation, 82. And finally, 1 year before that, 2017-18, English language 60%, math 61%, graduation 79.8%. So I know we hear a lot about how everything is falling apart, but that's 3 years worth of report card, so that we can work from that. I mean, the 51% is not to write home about. So here's the question that the audience member asked. District proficiency, graduation rates, and attendance have been declining for the last 5 to 6 years. What will you do to address that? And why do you think the administration was not held accountable for this in the past? So that's 2 questions. You can answer however you wish in either order. So shall I repeat it?
You do the first one first.
Okay. District proficiency, graduation rates, and attendance have been declining for the last 5 to 6 years. What will you do to address that? And yes, we start with you, Mike.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I think the last 2 years that would be hard to consider that in the formula here because of what obviously occurred over the last 2 years. Prior to that, I mean, I don't know why the graduation rate is falling off. If there's just I mean, there's so many variables there. Is that the kids that aren't putting forth? Or is it the school that's not giving them what they need? Or do they just not want to graduate? I mean, what is the reason they're not graduating? I mean, there's variables in that. And so I don't know that I don't know without really looking into that how you would decide how you would take care of that.
And the second part was, and why do you think the administration was not held accountable for this in the past?
Yeah, so why they weren't held accountable, I can't account to that. I really don't know why they weren't. If they weren't aware of it, sure, I'm sure they were, but yeah, I don't know why they weren't held accountable to that. So I wish they had. Anyway.
Okay, thank you. Nate, your turn.
Yeah, thanks. As my co-candidate up here pointed out, the last 2 years have been a bit of an outlier in terms of performance, and that's one of the biggest tasks that we face as a school board moving forward right now is catching students up on this kind of what's being called a learning lag that has disproportionately affected not so much we'd have the normal high-achieving students, but students who are coming from at-risk backgrounds. And I think that that's really where we need to have our focus. We've implemented in the last couple of years programs for students at the alternative high school, for instance, that have a work-based component to them. So it's a curriculum where they're getting some school credits for doing essentially internships. We're enhancing our social, I think, and so that's one of the things, an example of what we've done that we kind of need to keep doing. We need to continue to support social workers and counselors in schools because it's the kids that aren't performing well they're usually not dummies or whatever. They're having problems at home and they need the extra support that the public school system can offer them. And so I think it's really kind of, as again he said, really identifying what the problem is. I think it's pretty clear that it's students who are already at risk and are having troubles, and then focusing and drilling down on how to bring them up.
Thank you.
Thomas Mullen. Part one on the proficiency, like everyone is saying, 2 years of COVID has thrown everything into a loop. Could have done better through that, but that's past. It's already over now. And then on accountability, we need to look at the school board, because the school board, nobody likes to clean your own house. If you're doing something that doesn't work, change it. Don't just go with the flow because it's the easiest way. Parents haven't been listened to from the school board. You'd contact them, nothing gets resolved. So that all needs to change. The parents, the community needs to get involved as much as the school district, because children need to want to go to school. Children do like to get educated, but if you let them slack off, they're going to slack off and take the easiest way out. And that needs to change. We need to have the students excited to go to school, want to go to school, want to learn, and want to graduate. That's a big thing nowadays. It's like children don't even care about graduating. They're like, well, why should I graduate? It doesn't affect me none. They need to be taught that it does affect them, and it helps them grow as an individual and as a person.
Thank you. Sandy.
I'm tired of everything being blamed on COVID. The numbers were in decline before COVID occurred. COVID's a convenient excuse because we can take a look at these indicators, and while Lynn told us some of the numbers, that was the overall school. The high school indicator for math is actually at 44% proficiency. That's failure by anybody's standards. We need to be seeing a return to rigorous academics and putting some value on getting these kids educated so that they can go forth and be successful in life. COVID, we're beyond that. We can move past it. And it isn't just the individual kids that were at risk. It was our brilliant and our brightest children who were seriously affected by it as well. We had kids that were great, smart kids that were forced to mask and quarantine and miss school. They were denied their opportunity for a free and public education. They were put in handcuffs and hauled out of the schools. There was a lot of reasons and a lot of things that affected the education the last few years. And I saw children that were brilliant, headed for valedictorian, that they lost out on it. They're now back in school and struggling simply because they're bored as the teachers are playing catch up with all these other children that missed out on so much. We need to be rewarding those teachers who are doing a good job, giving them the extra pay that know how to reach these kids and get these children back on track.
Okay, thank you. Janice.
The declining test scores and the abysmal graduation rates have been a very large concern for our board. We have employed several different ways to address this. We have graduation coaches. We have counselors who have worked with students to figure out why are they not graduating, what is missing, what's going on. We have PLCs that are in place, which is a professional learning community that allows teachers to collaborate, to get together, to talk about specific students, to drill down and figure out, okay, this is what works with this student, this is what works with that student, because often that's what it comes down to, individual students. And these test scores are really important and something that we pay close attention to, but we have to remember that's a moment in time that those students were tested that reflects that time, that moment, how they performed on that day. Graduation rates, I'm a huge proponent. I think we need to be at 100% graduation rate. We know what the future holds for our students who don't even graduate from high school. Their opportunities are limited in life. We have a lot of work to do, and we're doing that. Our administrators are held accountable. The school board has had some difficult conversations with central administration and with principals about the expectation that test scores will improve, graduation rate will improve.
All right, thank you. It's hard to know which one to choose next.
We still have a few more.
Oh, I'm so sorry, now I forgot two of you. All right, Carrie.
Yeah, so I'm going to say again, teachers are the number one most important school-based factor that influence student success, right? So if we're going to tackle this challenge, it starts with our teachers and in collaboration with our teachers. Teachers are the ones in the classrooms every day with those students, and they're going to have the best understanding of the challenges that may be leading to those test scores. I also want to remind us, though, that we're not the only school district to have found ourselves in this situation, and we as a district are also not without support. There are plenty of school districts across the country who have experienced less than ideal test scores and have raised them, right? So there are perhaps some examples that we can look to. We don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. And the Wyoming Department of Education, the US Department of Education have an abundance of resources that we can tap into that may include some best practices in this area. So I think it's important that we don't try to reinvent the wheel, right? But again, kind of consider the resources that already exist, what strategies have been proven effective in other areas, And that in combination with collaborating with our teachers to better understand the challenges and troubleshoot may give us some clear direction in how we can raise those test scores and graduation rates.
Thank you. Mary Alice.
The school district right now has basically a three-pronged approach to handle the problem. Number one, the academic test scores that were lagging behind. Collaboration with the teachers in place. We're already talking about reading facilitators. We're talking about with the teachers how we could best help. Another choice is perhaps we would have a little boot camp where the teachers would have the students come at part of Christmas vacation and come in for some extra days for an immersion technique with reading and math. Math, I'm interested being a math teacher like Lynn. So already we're starting to collaborate with teachers and find out what to do. Number two, our second prong is the mental health. And the counselors and social workers, I've already been in talking with our superintendent about what we can do. And you probably read in the paper a month ago or so that Gillette has wellness centers in the school. You probably saw in Idaho, they have some mental health centers in the school. So they're already starting to take care of those kids who were traumatized in the last couple of years. And number three, social development. I was in the middle school just last week talking to some of the teachers who said, I'm having to work with the kids on conversation skills, on conflict management, on leadership skills, because these are things that we all fell behind on. So we're back to our teachers, the board's collaborating with them, and it's basically a three-pronged approach, back to basics.
Thank you. Nate, I think you lead this one. Do you think the district does a good job of advocating for at-risk students? What are your thoughts on suspensions and expulsions of students?
Yep, another two-prong question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll do the first one part first. Do you think the district does a good job of advocating for at-risk students?
Should I only answer that one?
Well, you can answer one after the other.
Okay. Free form up here.
You have a minute and a half.
You know, as I said before, I think we can do better, and I think as you know, as the graduation rates and the test scores, you know, while those are kind of selective factors and selective metrics, you know, that's the beauty of public education is that we educate all students. You know, we educate in this university town the children of rocket scientists, and we educate the children whose parents are in jail and who are addicted to drugs. And you know, and it's and we run the entire gamut, and we have to provide for everyone. And so I think that there's always more to be done. For the suspensions and expulsions, it seems clear to me that, you know, kicking kids out of school and pushing them away when they're clearly having problems is the worst thing that we can probably do. You know, if these are people who are going to remain in our community, often, you know, expulsion and suspension is a train track to the criminal justice system, and it does no one any favors.
Thank you. Thomas.
Thomas Mullen. Yes, at-risk children, you have to look at it if it's, like Nate was saying, is it from their home life or are they just at risk because they don't want to learn? If they're a problem and it becomes too bad, law enforcement will step in if they're that much of an at-risk. If not, they need to know that there's going to be discipline in the school district. If they act up, they're going to be held accountable. I don't believe in expulsion or nothing like that. Make them stay in school, because you tell a kid, I'm going to send you home for a week, but yet you can still make up all your work. They don't care. They'd rather go home and goof off a week. They need to know that there's actions for the consequences. If they misbehave in school, keep them in school another hour. Make them do the work in school. Don't send them home. Don't give them a vacation. Make them work and earn the education, not just try to pass them along to somebody else as a problem for them.
Thank you. Sandy. Sure. The first part is, do you think the district does a good job of advocating for at-risk students? And the second part was, what are your thoughts on suspensions and expulsions of students?
With the limited knowledge that I have regarding the districts advocating for at-risk students, my observation's been that it's pretty effective, but I don't have extensive personal experience there. But there are bylaws and guidelines in place that we can work with that are going to tell people how to do that. As far as suspensions and expulsions, that's something that I have worked at a lot in the past because as an adult educator and a substitute teacher, I've oftentimes been in the disciplinary units, and we always found that it was better to have the children in a disciplinary unit in an in-school suspension situation rather than being sent home, because there we could advocate for them, we could work with them, we could teach them.
Thank you. Janice.
I think our district does an excellent job of supporting our at-risk students. Our Director of Special Services has a very comprehensive approach with wraparound services. In our schools, we have counselors, we have social workers, we have psychologists. We are well-staffed with paraprofessionals to support students in the classroom. I think we do a very fine job of doing that. As far as suspensions and expulsions, I think every case that comes along has to be dealt with individually. There are situations where we have to expel, there has to be a suspension. There are legal consequences. There may be legal consequences, so it's hard to talk broadly and generally about that because I think each situation has to be dealt with, determined by what the circumstances are of the situation.
Thank you. Hi, Carrie.
Hi.
You're next.
You remembered me. So in my volunteer and personal life, I have worked directly with migrant students, children in the foster care system, students without housing, LGBTQ plus youth, English learners, and of course in my professional life, I study education, and that includes equity in education. So I have a deep understanding of how different backgrounds, different identities, different family structures and home lives, cognitive differences can influence a student's success. And suspension and expulsion is often not the best solution, certainly as Janice mentioned, right, case by case, and there are cases where it is necessary. And I also want to agree with Janice that I think our school district does a good job. It's wonderful. We have counselors, school psychologists, I would like to say social workers, but I think I heard in last night's forum that there is one social worker for the entire district, which probably is not enough. But I do believe our district does a good job. I've also done a lot of work with after-school programs, and those can be successful in kind of elevating at-risk kids' performance and engagement in the school, which is important for, you know, that engagement is so important for getting them to graduation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Alice.
I am really proud of how our district advocates for our at-risk students. Having been a math teacher and a school counselor and chemistry teacher in other districts, we do a good job here at our district of advocating. And then on to at-risk and thinking about expulsions. You know, there's an old saying, kids come into kindergarten as question marks. They're just wanting to ask questions all the time. And too often, instead of leaving as exclamation points, they leave as periods. So I would say, again, our district does a very good job of having our students graduate as exclamation points. And all the more we want to work on having that happen. I think in-school suspension, if necessary, case-by-case basis, is the best because the teachers then can show, we care about you, we're going to help you while you're here with us and in school suspension, and we're going to make this work. Thank you.
Mike.
There's a lot of great ideas here. The at-risk kids, I mean, this is another one of those moving targets. Why are they at risk? Is it because of their home life? Is it because of some traumatic event in their life? Is it their self-esteem? I mean, there's a whole lot of things that play into this. And so I think that, I don't know how the student services work, but I do know that, you know, kids need to understand that there are consequences for their actions, and they need to learn to respect not only themselves but those around them, and self-esteem is something that the kids need to understand, that their self-esteem does not depend on anybody around them. They are responsible for themselves, how they handle these situations. Now, that said, they do need help with this sometimes. And so I'm thinking that as I'm saying this, sometimes you have to expel, they have to be expelled as a lesson or suspended, but that should be limited to, that should just be limited to the severe cases, like where there might be a threat to somebody else. Anyway. And I would like to see more parental involvement in the lives of these kids.
All right, thank you. Now, Mike, I think you start this one, and I'm trying to change the tone a little bit here. I just had one. Oh, here it is. Should schools emphasize making students college ready upon graduation? Are there other tracks we should prepare students for after they graduate?
This is Thomas. I was next.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I say, Mike?
The school, I feel, is there to educate our children. The parents, the students themselves, and the teachers should have college preparatory courses, which they do now. Some children are not inclined to go to college. Some cannot afford it. Some just don't have the capacity to do it, but they need to emphasize more on the trades, which they're lacking in. As a business owner here, I get people come out of high school, they don't even have a work ethic. That all needs to be incorporated back in. Like I said, it falls back on the parents. The educators just need to worry more about educating them, the basic education fundamentals, reading, writing, arithmetic. As far as, with the children, how their feelings are and all that, that's part of it, but that's not the main thing of the educators. They need to make sure our children are ready to graduate, to get out of high school, to become citizens, not just to depend on somebody else to assist them.
Thank you, Thomas. Sandy.
We're aiming at creating lifelong learners and critical thinkers. They may be in college, they may be working as your plumber, they may be the dentist's hygienist. College education is a wonderful thing, but not everybody's headed for college, and not everybody should be. Because right now I can tell you, sitting at the board meetings and hearing that the contractor is saying, I could hire 10 electricians today. I'm that short on electricians. I had an electrician offer my son an opportunity for an apprenticeship, saying, come work for me as an apprentice. And when everybody else graduates from college, you're going to be making $80,000 a year. So those kids will be in debt, you'll be making money. Every child needs to be prepared to move forward as a critical thinker, a lifelong learner, have those foundational skills, but we should be providing as much incentive and encouragement and validation to the students who are involved in CTE, vocational skills, business track, as well as the college classes. And I love to see those because they are vitally needed in the workforce today, and we need to be encouraging them to develop those work skills that will further them in very good, high-paying jobs.
Thank you. Janice.
No, I don't believe every student should go to college. As my colleagues have stated, we need plumbers, we need electricians, we all have cars, we need auto mechanics, but I think the basics of what we provide in school need to be there for all students. Reading skills, writing skills, math skills, the ability to critically think and analyze what you're reading. I think those are skills that will be useful no matter if it's a career, college, military, wherever a student goes post-high school. I think there are basic skills and basic knowledge that they need to have to be prepared for life. We don't all need to be engineers. We need a broad spectrum of people to serve us and to provide for our communities.
Thank you. Carrie.
Yeah, I certainly agree. It's not just college readiness, it's college and career readiness. And so our school should be preparing our kids for life after graduation, whatever that might look like, with strong communication skills, right? Transferable skill sets, so no matter what your job might be, you need to be able to communicate with people, right? You need to be able to collaborate. So some of those transferable skill sets. And that's also important because there are going to be jobs that exist in 10 years that don't exist now, right? So how can we prepare them for it? It's with those skill sets that can transfer across different careers. I actually supported a community of practice of various districts and organizations and partnerships across the country who were piloting different innovative practices targeting college and career readiness. So this is something that I'm excited to dive into on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Alice?
How can we best support our students to succeed in life? How can we do that? And that's always the question I'm wondering whenever we come across an issue on the board. So right now, we're really looking at academic success, always, and then the well-being, which entails communication skills, emotional intelligence. So we have a holistic approach to education to prepare the students when they graduate for whatever they choose. And I think our district does a great job. You probably know already, we have an automotive class, we have a woodshop class, we have a cooking class, and by the way, they've taken some prizes in competitions. We just added healthcare classes because people are going into healthcare. So we have a myriad of electives. That's impressive. And that's something when we talked on the board about the budget this last spring, we said, these kinds of electives are not going to be cut by us. We need to prepare for whether it's college, military, whatever kind of career, they'll be ready and they'll be confident. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm with everybody here. College is not cut out. Not everybody's cut out for college. I mean, there's military, there's trade schools, there's just going to work. I know that so I worked at the university for many years at the engineering college, and I saw the importance of the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It covers a lot of fields, and it touches on a lot of bases that kids can learn from. It creates critical thinking, and that's something kids have to have that they don't have. And I think we're getting further away from that. They can't troubleshoot a problem because they've never seen the problem or they've been rescued from it. So I think life skills is a huge thing for them to learn in school. The communication is huge. I mean, kids that can't even do they can't, if they don't have their phone, they can't communicate with people. They have a phone and they don't communicate. They can't call, they text. They need to learn how to deal with the people in the world around them. And I think we need to bring competitiveness into the schools because that's what drives a kid to do better. When he has to compete with somebody else for something, whether it's in a test score or a high school football position. Anyway, they can't be afraid to fail.
Okay. Nate?
Yeah, thanks. I'm just excited that it seems like everybody's in unanimous agreement. And it's notable because over the past 20 years, since the start of No Child Left Behind in the early 2000s, that's been sort of like the national drumbeat. It's like every student should be prepared to go to college. It was dumb. It was a failure, and we can see a lot of the fallout right now. You know, I don't want to parrot what everybody else has said, but it's like, look at our community. What do we need? You know, we have a housing shortage. You know, maybe we should teach students to build houses, and we're actually going to. I'm working with Assistant Superintendent Debbie Fisher on a program to pilot that right now. Wyoming has a nursing shortage all over the state. Maybe we needed to start a healthcare program, which we did. And things like life skills financial responsibility, just planning, that kind of thing. There's a whole litany of things that you can learn besides, how to pass your ACT to go to the university. Obviously, students should be prepared to be able to do that, but that doesn't consist of an entire education.
Thank you. All right, well, I think we're done with that. I'm going to change things up here a little bit, just so we can all wake up. I'm going to just mention a couple of words, and I want a very short reaction to those words. Now, let me use one that I've used with the other school board members. I asked them about financial literacy. It's yours, Sandy.
Absolutely. Every child needs to have a solid grounding in financial literacy, balance a budget, pay the bills.
Okay.
Absolutely essential to live in the world today, to know how to budget money, to know how to be a smart consumer, to know how to use those critical thinking skills that we were just talking about. So absolutely essential.
Carrie.
Yeah. My 10-year-old was actually just involved with creating a financial literacy program for kids, and specifically it was a film project that was funded by the Wyoming Arts Council, National Endowment for the Arts, and the Wyoming Legislature. So it's an absolute yes for me. I'm really excited to see that there's actually current movement on this right now in developing financial literacy for kids. Yep.
Mary Alice?
A big yes for me. I think financial literacy is crucial for everyone. And again, being a former math teacher, we can start them at kindergarten. So all the more for financial literacy.
Thank you very much. Mike?
Yeah, so anyway, I remember when I was in high school, we had to be able to balance our checkbook, and we had to fill out our income tax forms for that year, for our jobs. We had to figure a budget. And we had to learn how money works. And I worked for my dad. He was a small business owner in town. I had to be able to count change back to people without writing down how to do it. If somebody handed me a 20 for a $9.57 purchase, I had to count it back to them. And so I'm all for that. Yeah, whatever kids can do to learn how money works, I'm all for it.
All right. Nate?
Yeah, I almost want to be a smart aleck and be contrarian and go against, but obviously I'm not going to, because it's such a no-brainer, but we actually don't emphasize it enough, and so I'm glad the conversation is happening. No longer balancing checkbooks, because you're the only one up here. Okay, you still do, but now it's like, oh, how many online subscriptions do you automatically have deducting from your checking account? The landscape has changed, but the need is still there, perhaps more than ever.
Thomas Mullen again, yes. Yes, that's one of the most important things out there. They need to be taught financial responsibility as well. That falls back on education as well. They need to be taught math, reading, and everything, so they can comprehend that they're actually responsible for their own finances, not someone else.
Okay, well, I'm going to change it a little bit. Again, short answer, gender identities. Janice, it's yours. Short answer, please.
What about gender identities? That's a broad
What comes
topic.
to mind?
Our acceptance. I think every student needs to have a feeling of belonging and to feel safe at our schools. I think that's really important, that we can accept one another and our differences.
Thank you. See, that wasn't so hard. Carrie?
My one-word answer would be valid, but my slightly longer answer is I'm deeply committed to every child in Albany County having access to a high-quality education in a safe learning environment. And to me, that means an environment in which that student is supported and cared for and seen and valued for who they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Alice? Short answer.
My short answer would be inclusion. And then my longer answer would be respect, safety, caring, and understanding.
Nice. Mike?
I guess when I hear that word, I wonder, when you're born a certain sex, and that can't be changed. So whether you choose to operate in the sex that you're born, I mean, that's just a mental thing that each person has to go through. I guess I've never experienced this, but yeah, I just don't know how to explain that. You know, I believe you're born what you're born, and you can't change it. If you castrate a bull, it doesn't make him a cow, and if you cut the udder off of a cow, it doesn't make her bull. So, you know, I think that we have to be careful about how we push this on these kids for their own mental good.
Okay, thank you. Nate?
Yeah, I'll go with more of the supportive track on that one, and it's something that I think it's an amusing idea that it's something that's being pushed on students. No, I never chose to be born this way, and I feel like that's can be applied to people of a number of different situations, gender identity being one of them.
Okay. Thomas?
Quick answer, I guess. Boys, girls, men, women. The school, I feel, is not the place to try to impose someone else's identity on little children. They're impressionable. I would rather impose education on them, teach them how to read, write, so they can think for themselves once they get out of school. It's not anyone else's responsibility for the child to raise them except their parents. Not the school to say, well, if you feel this way, that's okay. No. How do you feel? Okay, Jimmy, go to the boys' room. We don't need boys going in with the girls' room. It makes the girls uncomfortable. Vice versa, girls going in with the boys' room because they identify as this week. They're going to school to learn. Learning is part of everything. Don't confuse them in school. Let them get out of school, then they can confuse themselves.
Short answer.
Thank you.
Sandy?
In the classroom context, it's irrelevant. A teacher is there to educate students. All students, regardless of whatever they choose to be or identify, is deserving of being treated with courtesy and respect as I would treat any other individual. By the same token, biology matters, and recognizing it is not bigotry. I just simply know I do not want born biological males in the restrooms, bathrooms, and sports with my daughter.
Okay. Let's do one more of those. This time, how about public charter schools? Carrie, it's yours.
Public charter schools. I think it's wonderful that we have the different educational options that we have here in Albany County, and one of those is a charter school. But I think it's also short answer.
No. I was just holding up two fingers. Two charter schools.
Two. My mistake. And so it's wonderful for families to have options. And also, our public education system is a public education system for a reason.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop there.
Yes. Mary Alice.
Public charter school, I appreciate we have in our own communities, so everyone has a choice on what feels right for them and their child. So I'm for a variety of schools. I do want to say that the research shows student success depends more on the teachers than whatever school they go to. Even homeschooling, they depend more on the teacher than the type of school they attend. I think that's very interesting.
Okay. Mike.
Yeah, so I'm in agreement with, it's nice to have a variety of schools, but I definitely think that homeschooling is a viable option. Private school, charter school, public school. That's the parent's choice. And that's what we need to keep it at, parent's choice.
Thank you.
In addition to teachers, one of the most important indicators of student success is parental involvement, as a number of people have mentioned on here. The problem with charter schools is that they end up taking all of the children whose parents are really supportive and involved and who are going to make the decision, say, oh, you're going to go to this special school. And that pulls those students out of the system and leaves the public education system to deal with everybody else, which I don't think is good or productive for the whole of the body.
Okay.
Thomas Mullen again. Public charter schools, I feel, are good, I guess, because it creates competition between the public school, charter schools. If you perform good, parents can make the decision on where they want their child to go to, where they feel they're going to get the best education for their dollar. Not this, well, it's public school or nothing. No, it's not it. If a child can go to a charter school and that works for them, great. If they're homeschooled, more the better if the parents are capable of it. If not, the public schools should be in competition with the charter schools to educate the children to the best of their ability.
Okay, let me just clarify. It was about public charter schools, not private charter schools. Okay, Sandy, it's yours.
Albany County is blessed to have a variety of schools here. They all operate under the auspices of the Albany County School District, and so the public charter schools are a great option. But if the public schools cannot withstand the scrutiny of competition, then they need to reevaluate where they're at and make some changes and make some improvements. However, Albany County, with the schools of choice, I have benefited from it because I've watched my children go to a variety of different schools, and I'm grateful for the variety that we have had here.
Okay. And lastly, Janice.
We know that not all students learn in the same way. Not all students are going to thrive in one school or another, so I think it's important that we have choices. Our two charter schools in Laramie, Snowy Range Academy and Montessori, are very different in their approach to academics, and there are students at each school who would not thrive at the other, so I think that public charter schools fill a very important role in our district.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to switch back to a lengthier question. I've got a number of questions here about pandemic, and I know we said we were going to leave it behind, but maybe a short-ish answer, 1 minute. One question is, what is your opinion of masks and mandates? And another one, what is your opinion of the past actions of the local board during the pandemic? I'm not sure which question to ask. So what's your opinion of pandemic choices as we move forward? How's that? What have we learned, I guess? Mary Alice, I think it's yours.
Yeah. I think we learned a lot from the past about collaboration. So as we move forward, and thinking about a possibility of another pandemic, I think we've learned to listen carefully, more carefully to each other, and offer that respect in a calm manner. I think we've learned we don't like to be divisive with each other, so listening carefully for what is best for our students, it continues to come back to what is best for our students and our staff in the schools. And so for me, listening to the national CDC, listening to our state health, listening to our local health professionals, as well as what do the teachers say and what do the parents say. We're going to have to sit down and work together. I think that's the big lesson we learned.
Thank you, Mary Alice. Mike?
Well, I know that since the pandemic, we've done a lot of research and listened and read several different places about the effectiveness of masks and the hazards of them. And as it's turned out, masks are totally ineffective in stopping a virus because the virus particle is so small. So I think we have to take that into consideration. And also the fact that kids that were wearing masks, that were wearing them day after day after day, many of them developed respiratory problems because they were never changed. They weren't taking the masks off. They were wearing them to school. They'd wear them home. They'd wear them around the house, and then that bacteria was building up. So, if we get into this again before it happens, I would encourage everybody to do some research into this mask subject.
Thank you. Nate?
So one thing among many I learned sitting on the board during the pandemic is that misinformation is really dangerous. and people learning facts off of social media and repeating them as gospel truth is leading us into a divided and chaotic society. It's actually not true that masks are ineffective. I'm not sure where that information came from, but it's 100%. I'm sure you can send me a Google search. It's not true. That's not true, and it's also not true that they're harmful to students. My priority is to keep schools open because I don't think remote online education is effective, and that's one of the things that wearing masks in the schools helped us accomplish when Cheyenne closed down because they had an outbreak, when Thermopolis closed down, when Sheridan closed down. We remained open, we kept the students learning.
Thank you. Thomas.
This goes into whole can. I believe falls back on the parents. We trust the parents to do everything else. Parents' responsibility to raise their children. If they believe the mask is helpful, by all means. But as a school board, we should not be dictating our beliefs on the children. You've just heard right here 2 different counts. One says it does, one says it doesn't work. To me, I didn't wear it. Flu's been cured, I guess. But to me, a mask is, it's your own personal choice. It should be like anything else. In moving forward, if it comes up again, we need to give the information to the parents, let them decide what's best for their children. We're not up here to tell you what's best for your child's health. We don't pay their insurance. We're not going to sit up with them at night when they have a toothache, so we shouldn't be making them go to school wearing something that they don't feel is helping them at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy.
Well, it is true that I found myself at odds with the school board on more than one occasion. Found myself being called misinformed and stupid. Have had the police called on me. Have witnessed a 16-year-old child hauled out in handcuffs because she chose to not wear a mask as she sought to take advantage of her free, appropriate public education. There is a lot of differing information out there, and to deny that some of the information that your constituents have is wrong is inappropriate. Because I'll tell you what, it's the parents' decision and their medical providers to make those decisions. There were a lot of children who were severely affected by quarantines, masks, suspensions. I had my child into the doctor multiple times because of the mask and the respiratory infections that she had. I saw a lot of other kids missing out on school, and it was a very difficult time. I hope that we can move forward respectfully and not ever have to deal with this again.
Hindsight is perfect. We learned a lot. There was so much unknown. I think about the time when Governor Gordon very early on told us to close schools before cases were even spreading. We know now that we didn't need to do that so early. We've learned a lot. Our health professionals are learning a lot even now about COVID. I think going forward, I would continue to defer to our health officials, people who've been trained, spent years learning about healthcare, spent years learning about public health, and I would certainly defer to them and listen to their recommendations going forward.
Thank you. Carrie.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you, Janice, and other members of the current school board who saw us through such a difficult time. Yeah, wow. We have the great benefit of having local, state, federal public health officers and officials who issue guidance to keep our community safe so that teachers, principals, superintendents, and school board members who are not health officials do not have to make health decisions, right? So I think following that guidance is incredibly important, and we're lucky here in Albany County that schools stayed open across the country when in many places, schools stayed open here, when in many places across the country, schools were virtual for another school year, right? And we were open here because we were masking, and so I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful I didn't have to have my kids home while I'm trying to work and have them doing virtual schooling, and I'm in favor of keeping schools open and following the guidance of our public health officials.
Thank you. All right, and I think that's it for that question. Well, here is Yet another one that is different. The Wyoming Education Association has filed a lawsuit over the lack of funding allocated to our schools. Should the school district join the lawsuit against the Wyoming legislature? Okay, Mike, I think this is yours to start with.
Yeah, well, I can't answer that. I don't know enough about the whole situation to even answer to it. All I've heard is just bits and pieces, and some of the information I've heard doesn't jive with other information, so I can't make an informed decision on that.
You can make it a short answer. Nate.
Thanks. The Wyoming Constitution's mandates, it makes education a fundamental right. So students have a fundamental right to a quality and equitable education, and it states that the legislature should pay for that by taxation or otherwise. The legislature has failed to do that, as I said earlier, in declining to give what's called an external cost adjustment, basically an inflation raise, figuring that into their amount. Everything costs more. Teachers need to be paid more to be able to afford to live. Someone mentioned that Wyoming has a high per capita spending rate on students, and that's true because we have a lot of rural schools that are really expensive to run. It costs about $17,000 to educate a student in Laramie. It costs about $40,000 to educate our students in Centennial and Rock River. It costs about $90,000 if we're talking about one of these dispersed ranch schools. And so, you know, people are going to throw that around as a defense. It's hogwash as long as unless you want to send everybody from Centennial into Laramie to get educated. So the legislature has repeatedly, the school boards have repeatedly taken the legislature to court over this. The school boards have succeeded every time. The legislature remains obstinate, and I support Albany County joining in the case against the legislature.
Okay, thank you. Thomas.
Thomas again. Yes, like Mike was saying, on the lawsuit, I haven't seen it. It's hard to speculate about it. In every situation, everyone wants more money, wants more money, wants more money. Don't know if it's frivolous or not, but the court system shouldn't be used as that. We need to figure out a way other than just trying to sue every year. And I guess if we've sued them numerous times, something's going wrong here. We shouldn't have to sue every year or every other year for a budget.
Okay. Sandy.
No, I do not support the WEA in its lawsuit. While WEA asserts that the state has violated the Wyoming Constitution and the quality of education has suffered for the lack of funding, I would disagree. The state's enjoyed the bounty of mineral wealth for many years, but times are tough. It's time for some belt tightening, and this isn't going to be solved by throwing more money at the problem. We need to be getting a little bit more creative. We've got the 8th highest per pupil expenditures, and yet our performance indicators put us in the bottom half. This isn't an issue of money. We want to talk about school accountability. Where's the real value and return on our investment? My mother-in-law taught 40 kindergartners and first graders. My father earned his GED in the trenches of World War II. I think our teachers can handle 20, 25 kids in a classroom, and it happens when you hold the children accountable for their education, when you hold the parents accountable for the education, and everybody, all of the stakeholders, takes responsibility for their actions and makes education a priority.
Thank you. Janice?
I'm paying close attention to this as the events unfold around the lawsuit. A couple of things to note: that the Wyoming legislature has hired several different consulting firms over the last couple of years to come in and assess how much we're funding education. Both of those consultants have said it's underfunded in Wyoming. The legislature paid large amounts of money to those consultants, and then they didn't listen to what they said. They didn't take their recommendations. Instead, they've made arbitrary cuts. Oh, we're going to cut $100 million this year, without clear reasons for those cuts and how they were justifying that. So I think it's really important that we pay attention to this. The Constitution was referenced. Free an appropriate public education for our students. It has to be funded. Not only do we need to keep teachers' salaries up with inflation, we also have the rising costs of everything, the curriculum materials that we buy, utilities that we pay. So everything is increasing. So I think it's really important that we pay close attention to this.
Thank you. Carrie.
Yeah, so I have testified multiple times to the Wyoming State Legislature on this very issue, advocating for adequate funding for our schools, for our teachers, for our kids. So I have been paying really close attention to this issue as well. And the Wyoming State Legislature has failed to uphold the state constitution. And I do know every time I've been there advocating for our kids and teachers, WEA has been there advocating for our kids and teachers as well. I support their lawsuit. And this is not some just kind of frivolous lawsuit. Again, they're advocating all the time. And this is kind of what it's come to. So I do support the lawsuit. Thanks.
Alice?
Let's think of the history of this a little bit. Back in 2008, the Wyoming Supreme Court said to the legislators, you know what? You need to follow the funding model that you approved. You hired these consultants, and now you have approved the funding model, and you need to follow it. So reluctantly, the legislators did give the money that they should have given, that they voted to give to the schools for a few years. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, what happened? They said, you know what? We're just not going to give that extra allotment to help with inflation. And we'll just ignore that. So this year we're going to cut $2 million, and next year we're going to cut $3 million. And yes, we hear you talking about inflation, but we're going to ignore it. I go back to what Trustee Marshall said. 2 consulting firms came in and said, you are underfunding the schools. And they said, we don't care. So that's why WA has gone now and filed the lawsuit. Right now, I'm in favor of joining the lawsuit. And when I think about this year, just one example of inflation, the teachers are being charged 8% more for health benefits. 8%. What if you were charged 8% more? And I said, I'm not going to give you any more money. Even if you're charged 8% more, you're going to have to make do with the money that you have. It's just not fair.
All right. Well, are you tired? Yes. Are you tired? I could ask another question, or I could just ask you to wrap up, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I guess, Nate, you're the one who starts this time. Make some closing statements, or a closing statement. Why don't you take about a minute for it?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, the thing that I really support about public schools, and one of the main values that drives me, is that we are here to educate all students. You know, from privileged backgrounds to hardscrabble backgrounds, from kids who are going to go to the university to kids who are going to go become plumbers and electricians. You know, we have to make decisions that account for everyone. And so it's really easy to get kind of closed on to say, oh, well, you know, I like this thing, and I like this thing, and I like this thing. But really the decision-making has to take into account all the things. One of the other aspects that I'll mention about education that I really value that we haven't talked about tonight, sadly, is civics education. You know, along with, you know, preparing for a career and whatnot, you need to be able to prepare to be a participating citizen of the society, you know, civic engagement, voting, and so on and so forth. I got to stop.
Okay. Thank you.
Thomas Mullen again. Thank you for everyone that's attended and everyone that came. Like I said, the reason I decided to run, the schools need help. You hear everyone up here talking about we need more money, we need more this, we need more this. Year after year, proficiency has dropped. In the real world, if you don't perform, you get fired. And you don't hear the excuse, well, you didn't give me enough money, I need a raise. Well, you're not performing, you're not doing your job. Well, I need more money. Well, I'm sorry, inflation hits us all. Hits me harder. When they say inflation hits, I'm a business owner. I still have to deal with it. If I want more money, I have to perform better or do more services. The school currently, I guess they have an opposite viewpoint on it. We just need more money, and we're not going to perform any better. And you can see from the scores, it hasn't performed better. Year after year, everything declines. We need to turn it around. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy?
Our founding fathers had much to say on the value of education. In a nutshell, the community school is an extension of the home and the family and a bridge to society. Putting education first in the lives of our students is the best path forward for individual, personal, and generational success. Our students need to be prepared to be informed citizens, involved community members, and people who love their country. As a school board, we need to set that vision and to govern lawfully and ethically while being good stewards of our resources and the taxpayers' money. We need to engage all the stakeholders. Our focus needs to be on increased proficiency, improved attendance, and higher graduation rates. So our students are work ready, whether that's for college, the trades, the military, or a skilled workforce. Being on the school board is one of the most important jobs that a person can do because the future of our nation lies in the strength of the families and the education of the children we raise.
Thank you. Janice?
I believe, as Nelson Mandela said, that education is the most powerful weapon with which we can use to change the world. I think it's very important that we continue to work on the things. We know there are things that we need to improve on. We know there's work to be done. And I am ready. I have experience. I understand the governance role of a school board member, and I would like to continue to be a part of this excellent school district.
Thank you. Carrie?
Well, thank you so much to the Albany County Public Library for hosting us tonight, and to the League of Women Voters for your partnership in putting on this forum and all of the forums. I know it's a lot of hard work. Thank you to the teachers, parents, community members for tuning in, for your efforts to be an informed voter, and for some really hard-hitting questions tonight. It was a lot of fun. As your school board trustee, I look forward to hearing from you regularly with your insights, perspectives, ideas, and I look forward to bringing my evidence-based lens and my professional and personal experiences and expertise to get to work for you, for our parents, for our teachers, for our school staff, most importantly for our kids here in Albany County. So when you head to the polls, I would be honored if you vote Carrie Murphy for school board. Thanks.
Thank you. Mary Alice?
Always the question, what is best for our students? How can we best support our students and staff to maximize their potential? So that's the question I'm always answering, building on my strength and education, passion, and skills and experience to serve you. So I ask for your vote to continue serving as a member of the school board. And I echo thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Public Library and all of you here today and everyone watching for caring so much about how can we best support our students. I love it that so many people care so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and listening to us ramble on. There's a big mission ahead when you have a school board because you represent taxpayers, parents, and voters, and you've got to represent them and take care of the product, the children, at the same time. It's like a big corporation, and so I would just encourage whoever the next school board group is going to be is to be able to come together and to work together for the benefit of the youth and the community of Albany County.
All right. And let me thank all of you. I know this is hard, and these weren't easy questions, but I can't tell you how much people learn about you as people and thinkers by watching you on tape, or better yet, coming in person. It's so much more informative than just reading your web pages or your Facebook page or even the voter service guide. In any case, thank you again. The community owes you a debt of gratitude, and I'm sure we all look forward to the school board after November. And I'll just tell you now, they meet on Wednesday, so clear your Wednesdays, everybody. What else? This is the last forum on the school board. It's not the last forum. We have 9 of them this election cycle. And next week, Wednesday, we have a mixed bag. We have the Fire District, number 1, Laramie Rivers District, and the Hospital Board. Okay, so those are people you've not heard about in the primary, and they serve an important but maybe a more invisible role than the school board. So we hope you'll come, pay attention to that. What else? Oh, we've invited everyone to be here until 9, so mingle, please, with the people in the audience, with each other, get to know one another. And again, thank you for all coming. It's been wonderful, and we'll see you again next week. Give them a hand.